Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. For more than 13 years, I've been handcrafting these sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, I love spotlighting diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world in which to live. I invite you to listen up and change the way you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Alrighty then, let's dive in. This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where you will learn how to regret less and lead with clarity, creativity, and courage. My guest today is Bonnie Wan. She is the author of The Life Brief, a playbook for no regrets living. Bonnie is a partner and head of brand strategy at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners, one of Fast Company's 2021 most innovative companies in the world. As a career brand strategist, she has been celebrated as an Ad Age Leading Woman for 2023 and 2022's Chief Strategy Officer of the Year. She has spent the last 3 decades helping brand titans get clear about their essence so they can grow and innovate from that place of clarity and purpose. In 2010, during a crisis of meaning, Bonnie wrote a creative brief for her life, and The Life Brief was born. Her resulting life brief not only saved her marriage, but kicked off a decade of personal and professional adventure paved with unexpected twists and unimaginable gifts. Today, Bonnie teaches others how to get clear, get creative, and get courageous about living without regret through her keynote talks, workshops, and retreats, including South by Southwest, where she is at this moment, Jane Goodall's Global Hope Summit, and Gwyneth Paltrow's In Goop Health. Bonnie, thanks for joining me today. That is a mouthful, but such a good one.
Wow. And you did it all. Thank you. And you did it so beautifully, Lisa.
Well, the words were there. So let's talk about this clarity business. You know, I think this is something that if we're thinking about our lives and where we want to go, getting clear is super, super important. So let's just start there. And your story about getting clear.
Well, after 30 years of working with companies, I find clarity is the key to acting, activating, innovating, and creativity. When companies really understand what makes them distinct, meaning who they are, why they exist, the why is a big one, and where they want to go, that's where we stitch together, connect those dots, and we have a propeller or a platform, for real growth and innovation. I find now, having done the Life Brief for 14 years, it's the same for people. When we don't know where we want to go, we kind of become victim, or we start to find ourselves in the flow of someone else's story, living out somebody else's point of view about what a good life is all about.
Let's talk about the Life Brief in its essence. I mean, really, is it a manifesto for the way we individually choose to live our lives? Talk a little bit about that.
I call it a practice at the end of the day. Yes, it is also a method and a process, but I use the word practice intentionally because it gets easier the more you do it. And it's a little awkward for a lot of people at the beginning, or it could be a little scary because we're out of practice with being in tune with ourselves. We live in an always on 24/7, culture of distraction. We're busy. We're all in busy traps. We're hustling harder, and we have to keep up because there's so much in our world around us. It's a fury of chaos, and it's hard to create the space to tune into ourselves and get deeper and peel back the onion and really understand what is our story versus the stories we've picked up, adopted, or inherited from other people. And so much of the life brief is inviting people to get in touch with themselves and their own essence and truth in small, bite-sized ways. This is not about take a 10-day vacation, go on a 7-day retreat. This is about in 5 or 10 minutes of a daily practice, how can you find your quiet, drop in, hear yourself, and practice allowing your naked honesty to come forward without judgment, without editing, without that harsh criticism that we can use on ourselves that usually come from other people's voices. And that practice gets stronger. And as that practice gets stronger, we start to understand more about what we want and who we are. And then we can get clear and put that into action.
Talk a little bit about your own life brief. What catalyzed you to create it? Was
Mhm.
it in 2010?
Yes. And I want to point out that that was my first life brief. And I've written dozens and dozens more for every part of my life since. I'm a bit addicted to this practice or method. So it's not a one and done thing. But in 2010, I found myself in a personal ditch, a crisis of meaning in my life. I thought my marriage was broken. That was the story in my head. I had 3 young kids under the age of 5. I now have 4, so spoiler alert. Uh, but it was a crazy time. I was the sole breadwinner, the 24-hour restaurant, the primary housekeeper, and the cook. And I felt really bitter, exhausted, frustrated. My husband and I spent our time negotiating schedules, if not downright comparing notes, critical of each other, how we were doing things. It wasn't a really great time to speak about happiness, whatever is the opposite of happiness. That's what was
Mhm.
going on. And in my darkest hour, as my reaction, it was my last resort of sorts. I went to my reflex as a strategist, which was to collect the data. And I started writing and writing against the question, what do I really want? And it wasn't about what does my husband expect? What do my best friends think? What do my parents want for me? Or what do my kids need? It was what do I really want in this moment? And after a lot of messy scrawling and writing, a different story came out onto the page than the one I was carrying in my head, which was my marriage is broken. The problem was my husband. And what came out on the page was a deep longing for a different way to have a relationship with time. I could see I was longing for more meaningful time with my kids. And yes, surprisingly, with my husband. And dare I say, for myself as a woman, as a mother, we don't like to give ourselves, we don't think we can, that we're allowed to give ourselves time back to nurture and nourish, feed and fuel ourselves. And once that was evident on the page, my attention immediately redirected to how can I reframe my relationship with time instead of what is this terrifying path I'm headed on in separating from my marriage?
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot to be confronted with at the time. I put myself in your shoes with three small kids, and to be at that crossroads, I would imagine was very scary.
It was scary. It was terrifying because my unbearable questions were, what if I can't hold this big life we've created? What if my husband, the person I'm with, isn't the right partner for me? What happens if that falls apart? So that was terrifying. The insight that came from the messiness of the writing, the allowance to be nakedly honest, immediately revealed something else. And I wouldn't have got there if I didn't empty my mind and my heart, I would say, onto the page. Because what I've learned since is that writing rearranges the furniture of our minds. When we put it down, it creates distance between us and these hot emotions. Our minds are also quite limited. They can only hold one or two stories at a time, and they tend to loop on repeat. So once I emptied my mind onto the page, it created a spaciousness for new ideas, new reflections, new questions, new stories. And in the distance, being in relationship with what had come out of me, I got to see through a new lens, new eyes, what was actually inside of me, which was a longing for time.
Oh. I want to give that a pause for a second, because I think that's something that is very relatable for many of us, about that longing for time and to reframe our relationship with time. Because time feels very compressed, right? And in the last 20 years, it feels like things have gotten just compressed even more. There's so much that goes on in a day, so much in a 24-hour cycle, that we cannot actually be in command of it.
Yes, I think our time contracted in the pandemic. And I know this is a very white collar perspective. I think, I don't think this was the case for everyone. But if you do work that allows for remote work, it really messed with our relationship with time, because suddenly you had spaciousness when you went into an office, in between meetings. You had to get from the fifth floor down to the second floor, and you had to stop by the restroom in between or grab a cup of coffee. And you had this wonderful walking spaciousness that gave you reflection time, processing time, resetting time. Once we moved into the age of remote, it was click a button and you're out of a meeting, click a button, you're back in the meeting. And it really reset our expectations for how people use their time too. Suddenly our commutes became meeting times, our in between our lunches, our every meal, even our bathroom time was taken up with meetings.
Yeah.
And everything sped up a little bit more. And culture and technology obviously have sped up and continue to, and then everything around us geopolitically, the instability of the economy and everything, they all raise the stakes for what we need to deliver. And it really contracts our emotional spaciousness.
Very well said. We're going to need to go to a break in a minute. But before we do, I want to just touch back on what you said about being a strategist and how you applied those skills that you used professionally to your own life. And I think this is something that we don't often think about. Like we're professionals on the one hand, we have this personal life on the other hand, and those skills actually do cross-pollinate if we're able to really tap into those strengths.
Yes. As a strategist, I've watched how quickly a company can move into a new direction. We call it transformation. It's overused, but how they can pivot so quickly when there is clarity and dropping into the essence of who they are, connected to where they want to go, that reveals a really short, direct path forward that everyone is on board for. And it's similar for how we spend our lives. We can repeat the same patterns and habits, almost sleepwalk through our lives, if we aren't reflecting on who are we and where do we want to go.
Which reminds me of the definition of insanity, right? When you keep doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different result.
Exactly.
Let's take that pause. And when we come back, we will continue the conversation with my guest today, Bonnie Wan. She is the author of The Life Brief, a playbook for no regrets living. To learn more, please visit thelifebrief.com. And on Instagram, you can find Bonnie at Bonnie Wan Official. Here comes that pause. We'll be right back. Hey, before we break, here is a gentle summer self-care reminder. The sun is shining, the waves are calling, and it's time for fun in the sun. But sun, salt, and SPF can impact our hair health. Just like our skin, the condition of our hair reflects our overall health. Both external and internal factors can impact the way our hair looks, feels, and grows. And that's why I use and love Nutrafol to help keep my strands strong. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, with over 1 million people seeing thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding. Thinning is different for men and women, and that's why Nutrafol has 5 formulas for different lifestyles, including plant-based diets. These are tailored to what your hair needs based on biology to grow. Take their hair wellness quiz at Nutrafol.com for a personalized plan based on your specific root causes. Physician formulated with drug-free ingredients, Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within to multi-target the key root causes of thinning, including stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism, all through whole body health. In clinical studies, 86% of women saw improved growth after taking Nutrafol for 6 months, and 72% of men saw more scalp coverage after 6 months. I've been using Nutrafol religiously for more than 2 years. Shedding has been significantly reduced. My hair is now thicker and healthier because of Nutrafol. Plus, some remarkable side benefits include better sleep, improved stress response, and a significant reduction of those pesky menopause symptoms, including hot flashes. No matter your lifestyle or stage of life, Nutrafol is a great solution that targets the root causes of thinning and supports hair growth from within. Building a hair growth routine is simple with Nutrafol through easy online purchasing. No prescriptions or doctor visits required. Free shipping and automated deliveries ensure you'll never miss a day, and you'll see results in 3 to 6 months. Get results you can run your fingers through. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code HH. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code HH. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code HH. Here comes that pause. We'll be right back. Research tells us that happiness is good for our health. Happy people live longer, are more productive, and make better partners, parents, and professionals. Want more sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content, More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness, available exclusively on Medium and Substack. One thing I know for certain, happiness waits for no one, and at times we all need a little support. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. And we're back, continuing the conversation with my guest today, Bonnie Wan. We're talking about how to regret less and lead with clarity, creativity, and courage. Let's return to the conversation. Bonnie, in the first segment, you shared your own story, your own journey beginning in 2010 when you recognized that you probably had a little burnout, right? Between all the obligations and commitments that you were making at the time to being a mom of 3 young kids, professional woman in your marriage where you started to have doubt, and then you getting into this life brief process for yourself, which I think is very inspiring for us as the witness today. Talk a little bit about how you used your strategic skills, which comes from your professional life, to tap into the art of distillation to bring yourself and us as seekers to change.
Yes. Well, we started with the importance of putting everything out in writing or getting it out from inside of us and onto the page, because then we can meet it with curiosity and more questions, and we get to use it as clay. And that is the art of distillation. When you have all the threads or ingredients in front of you, now you get to examine it, sort it, separate it into what I call buckets. What is sacred and non-negotiable? What is just drama or distractions of the moment? You're having a feeling, you're having a mood. It's your mother's voice in the background or whatever else is coming out onto the page. It's the noise. And then there's the homework. It's the stuff that you just have to show up for because you've signed up for this role and responsibility, and it's neutral. We don't have to spend a lot of energy on it.
Right.
But when we dial into the sacred, the must-haves, the non-negotiables, that's where you find your life brief. And that's where you get to use that as the clay to get declarative. And what I mean by declarative is you take it to a feeling that I call yes feeling.
Bleep alert.
You want to take your brief to declarative statements.
Yes.
And you know it's declarative when you feel the declaration. It feels like an exclamation mark, or you feel it in your veins. It gives you goosebumps or a fire in your belly, maybe butterflies in your stomach. It's different for everyone. So part of the practice is getting to know when your body is speaking to you, when you're knowing or your intuition is screaming. But getting that place is where we start to distill, and using your feeling, using your body as the signal to let you know when you've arrived. And my first life brief, that one, the burnout brief, as you called it, the name of that was Take Our Time. And that had two meanings to it. Take our time meant take back intention and control over how I was spending my time, but also it meant slow down.
Yeah.
Stop rushing. Stop saying yes to things I should be saying no to. Stop spreading myself so thin so that I was running on empty. And the brief under that, which were the 5 declarative statements, under Take Our Time, really expanded on what does it mean to take our time. And immediately when I shared it with my husband, he texted back, YES, all caps. And it was our first moment of alignment in probably a year and a half, and our first ray of hope that maybe we could pivot and create something new for our family.
And you did.
We did.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And what's miraculous about this, you talked about the unexpected twists and unimaginable gifts. They showed up really quickly as soon as we got clear. Both of us, we just immediately started spending our slivers of free time. There wasn't a lot raising kids and doing the breadwinning and everything that goes with it. But in the slivers of time, we started spending it differently. Instead of doom scrolling the news or on social media, I was doing research about what other communities exist, what kind of schools were out there up and down the West Coast. My husband was doing his own little fascinations and research. And only 4 months later, a house in a community appeared in Portland, Oregon that fit so many of the parts of our brief. And it held the possibility that maybe what we were united in dreaming of could be real. And we jumped on it.
Wow.
A lot of fear came with that, but we held each other strong at different moments to help us cross those fears. And we signed a lease on a house, sight unseen, but we knew the neighborhood. And then I had to face the fear of quitting my job at the agency, Goodby Silverstein Partners, the same agency I work at now. And I said to the president, I love this place. It is my family. It's where I've grown up, but I have to put my real family first. And we're moving to Portland, Oregon. And one of those unexpected twists was he said, well, why don't you do your job from Portland, Oregon? And this was 10 years before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we were able to create a life where I worked a 4-day week. I was based at home most of the time. We had a blended way of life, of co-parenting and co-leading this life. And my husband stepped back from his career and became the rounded lead parent, as we call it. And that was became a 6-year chapter. We went from the dark chapter to the golden chapter of our family life until the agency promoted me to partner and we moved back to California.
Wow. Quite the journey.
Mm,
But it wouldn't have been possible, right? That it, like you and I had spoken during the break about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, right? Where you have landed would not have been possible without that dark night of the soul, without that epic journey that you went on to discover that, like the Wizard of Oz, right? That you're Dorothy, you have all those tools and resources to get where you needed to go without even leaving your situation.
that is exactly right. I invite people now to lean into the
Yeah.
agitation, lean
Yeah.
into it because that's where the momentum is. That's where the insights are. That's where the good stuff is. And I like to say that the answers we seek lie in the questions we avoid.
Mm. Yep. Yep.
So don't be afraid to lean into it, to go into those places, because a life avoiding it means you're just going to keep on running down the paths that you might not feel good about, that you might be closing your eyes, hoping for the best, but knowing deep down it isn't the right thing for you. And when we lean into the agitation, invite the questions, approach it with curiosity, and face our fears, what is on the other side is quite brilliant.
The word that comes to my mind as you're speaking, well, there are two words: artistic and crafting, right?
Mm,
That what you have done is to intentionally craft this life for yourself. You're sharing with us the steps so we can do it for ourselves. And I'm also hearing about this time thing, right? We cannot purchase time. We can purchase a lot of things, we can purchase supports, but we cannot buy back time.
no, no. It is our greatest and becoming our scarcest asset,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I work in advertising, and that's where I come out of. And we know that attention is scarce, and that's why so many companies compete for it. I
Yeah.
also get to work in a really creative field where no one takes no for an answer. And I work alongside the most incredible creative people who see alternate paths or alternate solutions to any given problem. Though in life, we are conditioned to think that there are only ever two choices: yes or no, this or that, stay or go. And I think what we discovered in that first life brief was, oh, wait, we can craft a whole new path
Yeah.
that is true to us. And it was really a golden chapter. I lived this beautiful golden chapter where everything we needed as a family was within one block of our house. I could
Wow.
go to San Francisco once a week, but that meant I got 5 days at home with my kids and my husband. And we had this beautiful blending of a life that was uniquely ours.
But only because you were willing to take the risk and to turn your back on that life that you had once known because it was no longer satisfactory. So I think it's in that risk, that courageous step that changed everything.
Yes, and the previous life, we could have kept going, but I knew it was swerving towards a really unhappy place. I
Yeah.
mean, and I had to name it. We had to name it. But you're right. We had to take a look at it to see what was the real problem. And that aha, that the problem wasn't my husband, wasn't my marriage. It was actually our relationship with time, helped us get creative, get invigorated to reimagine what time could look like.
Yeah, it's very inspiring and very exciting for those who are listening to feel as though we are trapped by time in our calendars, to understand that we really do have the power to make these changes and really recognize and pay attention to the fact that time is scarce. It's precious. The clock is only moving in one way, you know?
Yes. And life can be brief, as we've learned over
Yes.
the last 10 years.
Yes. Yes. Wow, Bonnie Wan, come back and hang out anytime. I love this conversation, and it sort of hits the pilot light of where all of us live and what we get to be in charge, right? I have a girlfriend, Kate. She says we are the CEOs of our own life.
Yes.
Gosh darn it. Well, she doesn't say it like gosh darn it, but that's what we're going to say on the show. Gosh darn it. I am
We are the strategists of our lives.
Right. We're the strategist, the CEO, the map maker, the navigator, all of it.
And I know your audience is going to want to know, but how did you do it? Because I know they're curious seekers who want the practical knowledge. And I really wrote the book and I broke it down into the tiniest of steps and the most practical and tactical of steps, though it's filled with the richness of story so that you can see all the ways, not just that I have used it in my life, but that other people have, so that you can see that there's also no right answer. There's no one way that this goes, but the hands-on practice is laid out and designed to be a step-by-step playbook.
To get the template for one's own life brief, please visit thelifebrief.com, and you can find Bonnie on Instagram at Bonnie Wan Official. Once again, we're talking about the Life Brief, a playbook for no regrets living. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for joining us on Harvesting Happiness today. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Bonnie Wan, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day, and remember to be kind to one another. Want to take a deeper dive into sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content, More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness, available exclusively on Medium and Substack. Keep harvesting your own happiness anytime, anywhere from the comfort of wherever you are. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes from wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by me, Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the awesome team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.